The emergency alarm echoed through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council building, its piercing sound cutting through the usual diplomatic chatter. 12 different species had gathered in the massive chamber, their representatives sitting in a perfect circle around a holographic display showing the galaxy's star map. Red zones blinked ominously across human-controlled space, each one marking a violation of galactic law. Ambassador Thorn slammed his scaled fist against the polished table, his yellow reptilian eyes blazing with anger. The Scalari delegate had been arguing for hours about human expansion, his voice growing more hostile with each complaint. "These humans think they can ignore our laws," he hissed through sharp teeth. "They build colonies wherever they please, take resources that belong to other species and act like they own the galaxy." Queen Hive Mother Zix clicked her mandibles in agreement, her insect-like form towering over the other delegates. The swarm leader's compound eyes reflected the chamber's light as she spoke through the neural translator. "My scouts report human ships in 17 systems that were marked as forbidden zones. They show no respect for boundaries or sacred sites." The crystalline form of Commander Vel pulsed with angry blue light, his mineral body resonating with harmonic frequencies that the translators converted to words. The Prism Collective calculated that human expansion threatens 43% of known habitable worlds. If they continue at this rate, they will control half the galaxy within 50 years. High Arbiter Grom floated above his seat, his ghostly form flickering with ancient power. The Void Watcher had lived for thousands of years, watching civilizations rise and fall across the stars. His voice carried the weight of cosmic authority when he spoke. "The human representative approaches. We shall hear their explanation for these violations." The chamber's massive doors slid open with a low hum, revealing a single human figure walking across the polished floor. The delegates watched in silence as the newcomer moved with calm confidence, showing no fear despite facing the combined anger of 12 hostile species. The human wore a simple diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim, bearing the insignia of Earth's united government. "I am Ambassador Alex Reed," the human said, stopping in the center of the circle. "I represent humanity in all matters concerning galactic law and interspecies relations." Ambassador Thorn's forked tongue flicked out as he studied the human. "You stand accused of violating the Sacred Worlds Treaty, the Resource Allocation Compact, and the Expansion Limitation Accords. How do you answer these charges?" Reed looked around the circle, meeting each delegate's gaze without flinching. "The worlds in question were uninhabited when our colonists arrived. We conducted thorough surveys and found no signs of current occupation or registered claims. As for resource allocation, we have operated within the legal framework of every signed agreement." "Legal framework," Queen Hive Mother Zix repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. "Your species interprets laws to suit your needs. Those worlds may have been empty, but they held spiritual significance for multiple species. You destroyed sacred sites to build your cities. Spiritual significance that was never formally documented or registered with the Council," Reed replied calmly. "We cannot be held responsible for claims that exist only in oral tradition." The chamber erupted in angry voices, clicks, and harmonic protests. General Crack of the Stonewalkers pounded his massive stone fist against the table, sending vibrations through the floor. "This is exactly what we feared. Humans use legal technicalities to justify their aggression." High Arbiter Grom raised his ethereal hand, and the chamber fell silent. "The Council has reviewed all evidence and reached a unanimous decision. Human expansion ends now. All colonies established in disputed territories will be abandoned immediately. Your species will retreat to your original borders and accept permanent restrictions on further growth." Reed's expression remained neutral, but something shifted in the human's eyes. "What if we refuse?" "Then the Alliance will enforce this decision." Through military action, Ambassador Thorn replied with obvious satisfaction. "The combined fleets of all member species will converge on human space. Over 800,000 ships against your few thousand vessels. The choice is simple: compliance or total destruction. The human was quiet for a long moment, appearing to consider the impossible odds. Every species in the chamber had contributed their most powerful warships to the Alliance fleet. The Scolari brought fast attack cruisers, the insectoids provided swarm fighters, and the Prism Collective offered devastating energy weapons. Together, they represented the most formidable military force in galactic history. "How long do we have to decide?" Reed asked finally. 7 standard days, High Arbiter Grom declared. "After that, the Alliance fleet will enter human space and begin enforcement operations." Reed nodded slowly. "I will need to consult with my government. This decision requires approval from the highest levels of human leadership." "Of course." Commander Vel's harmonic voice chimed with mock sympathy. "Take all the time you need to accept the inevitable. Your species has fought bravely to reach the stars, but every civilization eventually learns its limits." As Reed turned to leave, Ambassador Thorne called out one final threat. "Tell your leaders that resistance is futile. The Alliance has overwhelming superiority in numbers, technology, and firepower. No single species can stand against the combined might of 12 civilizations." Reed paused at the chamber doors, looking back at the assembled delegates. "You might be surprised what humans can accomplish when faced with impossible odds. We've never been very good at accepting limitations." The human left the chamber, and the massive doors sealed shut behind them. The delegates immediately began discussing fleet deployments and battle strategies, their voices filled with confidence and anticipation. None of them noticed the slight smile that had crossed Reed's face just before leaving. Commander Vel's crystalline form pulsed with satisfied energy. The human seemed remarkably calm for someone facing extinction. Either they're incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. "Both, probably," General Crack rumbled. "Humans are known for their stubborn refusal to surrender, even when defeat is certain. It's what makes them dangerous." Queen Hive Mother Zix's compound eyes reflected the chamber's light as she considered the situation. "My intelligence reports indicate that human military doctrine relies heavily on defensive strategies and technological innovation. They may attempt some kind of surprise attack or unconventional warfare." "Let them try," Ambassador Thorne hissed. "No amount of innovation can overcome 1,000-to-1 disadvantage. The Alliance fleet will crush any resistance they can mount." High Arbiter Grom remained silent, his ancient mind processing the encounter. Something about the human's demeanor troubled him. In his thousands of years of existence, he had learned to recognize the signs of a species that had been pushed too far. Reed's calmness in the face of annihilation suggested either complete despair or absolute confidence. "Begin fleet mobilization," Grom ordered. "All species will contribute their promised vessels. We assemble at the edge of human space in 6 days." As the delegates dispersed to prepare for war, none of them suspected that they had just triggered events that would reshape the entire galaxy. The human response to their ultimatum would prove that sometimes the greatest threats came not from superior numbers or advanced technology, but from the simple refusal to accept defeat. In the depths of space, hidden from all sensors and surveillance, a single human ship received new orders. The vessel had been waiting in the shadows for decades, its crew trained for one specific mission. The time had finally come to discover why one human ship was all they needed. The Alliance fleet stretched across space like a metallic constellation. 800,000 vessels of every size and configuration floating in perfect formation. Admiral Thek pressed his scaled palms against the command deck railing, studying the tactical display with predatory satisfaction. The Scolari commander had dreamed of this moment for years, watching human expansion with growing irritation until finally the Council had authorized decisive action. "Status report from all battle groups," Thek commanded, his yellow eyes scanning the holographic readouts that surrounded his command chair. The bridge of the flagship buzzed with activity as officers from 12 different species coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. Commander Zol materialized beside the tactical display, his crystalline form pulsing with organized energy patterns. "Prism collective forces report full readiness." Our energy weapons are charged and targeting systems are synchronized with the fleet network. Insectoid swarm fighters are deployed in defensive formations around the capital ships, added Queen Hive Mother Zix through the neural communication link. My children are eager to test their skills against human pilots. General Crack's massive stone form cast shadows across the bridge as he moved to review the deployment charts. Stonewalker heavy cruisers have taken positions at strategic points. Throughout the fleet, our shields can withstand any weapon the humans might deploy. High Arbiter Grom floated near the center of the bridge, his ghostly form flickering with ancient power. The Void Watcher had seen many wars during his long existence, but this one felt different. The humans had responded to the ultimatum with surprising defiance, refusing to abandon their colonies despite facing impossible odds. Any sign of human military buildup? Grom asked, his ethereal voice carrying across the bridge. Admiral Feck consulted his long-range sensors, his brow ridges furrowing in confusion. That's what puzzles me. We're detecting minimal activity in human space. A few patrol ships, some civilian transport vessels, but nothing that suggests they're preparing for war. Perhaps they've accepted defeat, Commander Zull suggested, his harmonic voice translating through the communication systems. Even humans must recognize when resistance is futile. Don't underestimate them, General Crack warned, his deep voice rumbling through the deck plating. My species has studied human military history. They've survived ice ages, global wars, and resource crises that would have destroyed most civilizations. They adapt to impossible situations. The tactical display suddenly flashed with an incoming communication signal. Admiral Feck gestured to the communications officer, a young Scolari with bright green scales. Put it through to the main viewer. The image that appeared on the screen showed a human communications room, simple and functional compared to the elaborate bridge of the Alliance flagship. Ambassador Reed sat at a basic desk, hands folded calmly despite the massive fleet arrayed against human space. High Arbiter Grom, Reed said with a respectful nod. I bring the official response from the United Earth government regarding the Council's ultimatum. The bridge fell silent except for the low hum of life support systems and the distant vibration of 800,000 ships maintaining formation. Every species representative leaned forward, anticipating the human surrender that would end this confrontation without bloodshed. The human government has carefully reviewed the territorial claims, trade agreements, and expansion violations cited by the Council, Reed continued, voice steady and professional. We've consulted with our legal experts, military advisors, and colonial administrators. And your decision? Grom prompted, his ethereal form brightening with anticipation. Reed looked directly into the camera, eyes holding a strange mixture of regret and determination. We respectfully decline the Council's demands. The bridge erupted in shocked exclamations. Admiral Feck's jaw dropped, revealing rows of sharp predatory teeth. They can't be serious. Are they insane? Furthermore, Reed continued, cutting through the noise, we consider the Council's ultimatum to be an unprovoked act of aggression against sovereign human territory. Any fleet that crosses into our space will be treated as a hostile invasion force and dealt with accordingly. Commander Zoll's crystalline form pulsed with angry red light. This is madness. Do they not understand the forces arrayed against them? There's more, Reed said, and now there was definitely something different about the human's demeanor. The calm professionalism had been replaced by something harder, more dangerous. Humanity has decided to make a counter-proposal. The Alliance fleet will withdraw immediately from our borders. All territorial disputes will be resolved through proper diplomatic channels, and the Council will formally recognize human sovereignty over our established colonies. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to quiet as the impossible audacity of the human demand sank in. And if we refuse? High Arbiter Grom asked, his ancient voice carrying a note of disbelief. Reed's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile, but felt more like a predator showing its teeth. Then we'll demonstrate why one human ship is all we need to end this confrontation. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. For several long moments, nobody spoke. The tactical displays continued their steady updates, showing the positions of hundreds of thousands of ships, but somehow the overwhelming superiority of the Alliance fleet seemed less certain than it had moments before. "They're bluffing," Admiral Feck declared, though his voice lacked conviction. "No single vessel could threaten a fleet of this magnitude. It's impossible." "Humans specialize in making the impossible seem routine," General Crack observed, his massive form shifting uneasily. "Their entire history is filled with examples of small forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics and technology." Queen Hive Mother Zix's compound eyes reflected the bridge lighting as she processed the implications. "My intelligence network has been monitoring human military developments for decades. They've always focused on defensive technologies and unconventional warfare strategies." "Begin comprehensive scans of human space," High Arbiter Grom ordered. "I want to know the location, specifications, and capabilities of every human vessel in their territory." The scanning arrays of the Alliance fleet turned toward human space, their combined sensor power capable of detecting a single ship from across an entire star system. The results that came back were puzzling and somehow unsettling. "I'm reading approximately 3,000 human vessels scattered across their territory," reported the sensor officer. "Most are civilian transports, mining ships, and light patrol craft. Their main battle fleet consists of roughly 200 heavy cruisers and support vessels." 200 ships against 800,000, Admiral Feck calculated. "The odds are 4,000 to 1 in our favor." "Then why do I feel like we're missing something important?" Commander Zull asked, his crystalline form pulsing with uncertain energy patterns. High Arbiter Grom had been studying the sensor data with growing concern. His species had survived for millennia by recognizing patterns that others missed. Throughout galactic history, whenever a smaller force challenged a larger one with such confidence, there was usually a hidden advantage that would soon become apparent. "Continue monitoring," he ordered, "and prepare for the possibility that the humans know something we don't." As the Alliance fleet maintained its position at the edge of human space, none of them detected the single vessel that had been quietly observing them from the outer system. The ship appeared unremarkable by galactic standards, mid-sized with standard human design aesthetics. But deep within its hull, something waited that would change the balance of power forever. The vessel's name was inscribed in simple letters across its hull: Persistence. It had been humanity's most closely guarded secret for over a century, developed in hidden facilities by scientists who understood that survival sometimes required solutions that others would consider impossible. The crew of the Persistence had been monitoring the Alliance fleet's communications and movements, gathering intelligence while remaining undetected. Their mission was simple in concept but revolutionary in execution: prove that numerical superiority meant nothing when faced with sufficient ingenuity and determination. As the deadline approached, the stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape galactic politics forever. The Alliance fleet waited with overwhelming firepower, confident in their superior numbers. The humans prepared with quiet determination, ready to demonstrate that sometimes the greatest victories required no battle at all. In the depths of space, the Persistence began its approach. The quantum resonance chamber hummed with barely contained energy deep within the Persistence, its crystalline walls pulsing with blue light that seemed to bend reality around it. Chief Engineer Dana Liu ran her hands along the control console, feeling the vibrations that indicated the most advanced technology humanity had ever created was coming online. This single room represented 50 years of theoretical research and another 50 years of practical development, all focused on solving one impossible problem. "Field generators are stable," Liu reported to the bridge through the internal communication system. "We can maintain quantum superposition for approximately 90 minutes before the power cores need to recharge." Captain Maya Torres acknowledged the report while studying the tactical display that showed the Alliance fleet's massive formation. At 63 years old, she had been chosen for this mission not because of her youth or physical strength, but because her mind could process impossible situations and find solutions that others would miss. The persistence required a commander who could think beyond conventional warfare. Number 1. What's our current position relative to the Alliance fleet? Torres asked her first officer, Commander Ben Walsh. We're holding at maximum sensor range. Captain, Walsh replied from his station. The Alliance fleet is maintaining defensive formation at the edge of human space, but their long-range scanners haven't detected us yet. Lieutenant Tom Rivers looked up from the tactical station, his young face showing the tension that came with facing impossible odds. Captain, I'm reading over 800,000 vessels in that formation. Every major military ship from 12 different species. How can we possibly challenge that kind of firepower? Torres smiled at the question, remembering her own doubts when she first learned about the Persistence's true capabilities. Lieutenant, what do you know about quantum mechanics? Basic principles, Captain. Particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed or measured. That's right. Most species accept that as a limitation, something that only works at the atomic level. But humans have never been very good at accepting limitations. Torres gestured to the quantum resonance chamber's status display. We've learned to apply quantum principles to macroscopic objects. The explanation was interrupted by an incoming communication from the Alliance fleet. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of the enemy flagship, where High Arbiter Grome's ghostly form dominated the display. Attention human vessel, Grome's ancient voice carried across the communication channel. You are ordered to identify yourself and state your intentions. This is Captain Torres of the human vessel Persistence, she replied calmly. I'm here to respond to your ultimatum. Admiral Fake stepped into view, his scaled features twisted with disdain. One ship against 800,000? Captain, I respect your courage, but this is suicide. Is it? Torres asked mildly. Tell me, Admiral, what do you know about human military doctrine? The question seemed to catch the Scolari commander off guard. Your species employs standard tactics. Formation fighting, concentrated firepower, defensive positioning. Nothing we haven't encountered before. Those are our conventional forces. Torres agreed. But you're not facing conventional forces today. You're facing something that humans have been perfecting for millennia, the art of making the impossible possible. Commander Zull's crystalline form pulsed with impatience. Enough speeches. If you're going to fight, then fight. Torres nodded. To her crew, Computer, initiate Protocol 7. The bridge of the Persistence suddenly transformed. Holographic displays materialized around every station, showing complex mathematical equations and quantum field calculations that would have been incomprehensible to most species. The ship's hull began to emit a soft blue glow that spread outward like ripples in a pond. What are they doing? Queen Hive Mother Zix demanded through the neural communication link. General. Crack's massive form tensed as he studied the sensor. Readings. I'm detecting massive quantum distortions emanating from the human ship. The energy signatures are beyond anything in our databases. Nothing is beyond understanding, Torres replied calmly. It's just a matter of perspective. The Persistence began to change, but not in any way that conventional sensors could properly measure. The quantum resonance chamber was creating a field that allowed the ship to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. From the Alliance fleet's perspective, the single human vessel suddenly appeared to be dozens of ships, each one equally real and equally dangerous. Impossible, Admiral Feck breathed. Ships can't exist in quantum superposition at that scale. Human ships can, Torres corrected. We've learned to embrace uncertainty as a tactical advantage, while your species focused on building bigger weapons and thicker armor. We focused on understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. The tactical displays on the Alliance flagship showed readings that defied all known physics. The Persistence appeared to be occupying multiple positions simultaneously, creating a quantum cloud of potential threats that their targeting systems couldn't lock onto. Every time they thought they had identified the ship's location, it would shift to a different quantum state. This is some kind of illusion, Commander Zal insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. An elaborate holographic trick. Your sensors are telling you the truth, Torres assured him. Each of those ships is real. Each one can fight. Each one can destroy your vessels. The question is, are you prepared to find out which one will fire first? The quantum multiplication effect continued until there appeared to be over 100 persistence vessels scattered throughout the battle space. Each one moved independently, following different quantum probability paths that made prediction impossible. High Arbiter Grom had remained silent throughout the demonstration, but now he spoke with the weight of 3,000 years of experience. Captain Torres, what you're describing violates every principle of quantum mechanics we understand. No, Torres corrected gently. It violates every principle that you've accepted as limitations. The universe is far stranger and more flexible than most species believe. Humans have always been willing to explore the impossible. The Alliance fleet began to shift formation, trying to surround the multiple quantum signatures, but their tactical computers couldn't process targets that existed in superposition. Every targeting solution they calculated became invalid as soon as the quantum states shifted. How do we fight an enemy that exists in multiple realities simultaneously? Admiral, Fake asked, his voice showing the first signs of uncertainty. You don't, Torres replied. That's the point. We didn't develop this technology to conquer other species. We developed it to make conquest impossible. The implications of her words sank in as the Alliance commanders realized what they were facing. The human ship wasn't just protected by quantum superposition. It was using the fundamental uncertainty of reality itself as a weapon. Any attack they launched would have to target all possible quantum states simultaneously, requiring firepower that could sterilize entire star systems. This is your final warning, Torres announced, her voice carrying across the communication channels to every ship in the Alliance fleet. Withdraw your forces from human space immediately, or discover why one human ship is all we need to end this confrontation. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of quantum field generators and the frantic communications between Alliance commanders trying to understand what they were facing. For the first time in galactic history, overwhelming numerical superiority had been rendered meaningless by human ingenuity. Captain, Lieutenant Rivers reported from the tactical station, I'm reading power fluctuations in several Alliance vessels. Some of their ships are beginning to pull back from the formation. Torres nodded with satisfaction. The demonstration was having its intended effect. The Alliance fleet could still overwhelm the Persistence through sheer numbers, but they would have to destroy dozens of potential targets to ensure they hit the real ship. The cost in ammunition and energy would be enormous, and they still couldn't guarantee success. They're starting to understand, she told her crew. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to make the enemy realize they've already lost. The Alliance fleet floated in space like a wounded giant, 800,000 ships maintaining formation while their commanders struggled to understand the impossible situation before them. The quantum signatures of the Persistence flickered and shifted across their sensors, creating targeting solutions that dissolved the moment they were calculated. Admiral Thek paced behind his command chair, claws clicking against the deck plating as he tried to process what his instruments were telling him. Tactical analysis, he demanded from his weapons officer, a young Scolari whose scales had turned pale with stress. Sir, we can attempt a saturation bombardment pattern, the officer replied, his voice shaking slightly. If we fire simultaneously? At all quantum signatures, we might hit the real target. Might? Admiral Thak's yellow eyes narrowed. What are the projected casualties? To guarantee destruction of the human vessel, we would need to deploy approximately 60% of our total firepower. But sir, if we're wrong about the targeting solutions, we could hit nothing but empty space while exhausting our energy. Reserves. General Crack's massive stone form shifted uneasily as he processed the implications. A 60% expenditure for a single target. That level of resource commitment would leave us vulnerable to counterattack. Counterattack from what? Commander Zal asked, his crystalline form pulsing with frustrated energy. "It's one ship that has just demonstrated capabilities beyond our understanding," High Arbiter Grom replied, his ethereal form flickering with ancient wisdom. "If the humans possess this technology, what else might they have developed that we don't know about?" Queen Hive Mother Zix's compound eyes reflected the bridge lighting as she processed data from her swarm. "Intelligence network? My scouts report no other human vessels in the immediate area. But this quantum technology suggests their research capabilities are far more advanced than we estimated." The tactical display showed the Persistence's quantum signatures continuing to shift and multiply, creating a defensive pattern that seemed to mock the Alliance fleet's overwhelming numerical superiority. Each potential target location pulsed with the same energy signature, making it impossible to distinguish the real ship from its quantum doubles. "Captain Torres," High Arbiter Grom called out through the communication channel, "your demonstration has been most educational. But surely you realize this standoff cannot continue indefinitely." Torres's image appeared on the main screen, her expression calm and confident. "The quantum resonance field is energy intensive, but that's not really the point. The point is that your fleet is designed to fight conventional enemies using conventional tactics. We're neither. What do you want?" Grom asked directly. "What we've always wanted," Torres replied. "To be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. We don't seek to dominate other species or control galactic politics. We just want the freedom to grow and explore without arbitrary restrictions imposed by those who fear our potential." Admiral Thack stepped forward, his predatory instincts warring with growing uncertainty. "You speak of peace while demonstrating a weapon that could revolutionize warfare across the galaxy." "This isn't a weapon," Torres corrected. "It's a defensive system. We developed quantum superposition technology not to attack others, but to protect ourselves from exactly this kind of situation. A single ship that cannot be effectively targeted becomes immune to numerical superiority." The implications of her words spread through the Alliance fleet like wildfire. If humanity could apply quantum mechanics to starship defense, they had essentially solved the problem of overwhelming force. No fleet, regardless of size, could guarantee victory against an enemy that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. "You're claiming that this technology is purely defensive?" Commander Zull asked, his harmonic voice carrying skepticism. "Consider the tactical situation," Torres replied. "If we wanted to attack your fleet, we could have done so already. Quantum superposition works both ways. A ship that cannot be targeted can also target enemies from multiple positions simultaneously. But we're not firing on your vessels. We're simply demonstrating that your ultimatum is meaningless." General Crack's deep voice rumbled across the communication channel. "A defensive system that makes offense impossible. That's a very human approach to warfare." "We prefer to think of it as practical," Torres said. "Throughout our history, humans have survived by adapting to threats rather than becoming threats themselves. We've learned that the best way to ensure peace is to make war unprofitable." The bridge of the Alliance flagship fell silent as the commanders processed this information. Their entire strategy had been based on the assumption that overwhelming force would guarantee victory. The quantum technology had rendered that assumption invalid. "Captain," Lieutenant Rivers reported from the Persistence's tactical station, "I'm detecting movement in the Alliance fleet. Several ship groups are pulling back to minimum safe distance." Torres nodded with satisfaction. "Which ones?" "The Prism Collective vessels are repositioning to defensive formation. The Stonewalker ships are powering down their weapons, and the Void Watcher flagship has reduced its energy output to standby levels." "They're reconsidering their options," Commander Walsh observed from his station. "The demonstration is working." On the Alliance flagship, the various species commanders were indeed having urgent discussions about their rapidly changing situation. The certainty of easy victory had been replaced by growing doubts about the wisdom of their current course. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported, "quantum field stability in the human vessel appears to be fluctuating. The energy output is showing signs of strain. Admiral Thak's eyes brightened with renewed hope. How long can they maintain this effect? Unknown, sir, but quantum superposition requires enormous amounts of energy. They can't keep this up forever. Then we wait them out, Thak decided. Eventually their power systems will fail and we can engage them conventionally. But High Arbiter Grom was troubled by a different consideration. What if this ship is not unique? What if humanity has developed an entire fleet of quantum-capable vessels? The question hung in the air like a curse. If the persistence was just the first example of human quantum technology, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. The Alliance fleet's numerical superiority would become meaningless against enemies that could exist in multiple realities. We need to consider the possibility that we're facing a new paradigm in galactic warfare, Grom continued. One where traditional advantages no longer apply. Queen Hive Mother Zix's neural communication carried a note of respect that hadn't been there before. The humans have demonstrated that intelligence can overcome brute force. My species once understood this principle before we became dependent on overwhelming numbers. Are you suggesting we negotiate? Admiral Thak asked, his voice carrying disbelief. I'm suggesting we recognize reality, Grom replied. This confrontation has revealed that our assumptions about human capabilities were dangerously incorrect. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our approach to interspecies relations. The tactical display showed several more ship groups beginning to withdraw from attack formation, their commanders apparently reaching similar conclusions. The Alliance fleet's unity was beginning to fracture as individual species reconsidered the wisdom of challenging an enemy they couldn't understand. Captain Torres, High Arbiter Grom called out through the communication channel. I would like to discuss terms for a peaceful resolution to this crisis. Torres's smile was visible even through the quantum distortion effects. I'm listening, High Arbiter. Your demonstration has been most convincing. We may have underestimated human ingenuity. Perhaps there is room for negotiation after all. There's always room for negotiation, Torres replied. That's what we tried to tell you from the beginning. The negotiation chamber aboard the Alliance flagship hummed with quiet tension as representatives from all 12 species gathered around a circular table. 3 months had passed since the quantum demonstration, and the galaxy had changed in ways that none of them could have anticipated. Ambassador Reed sat calmly across from High Arbiter Grom, the human's presence no longer seen as a threat but as a catalyst for transformation. The preliminary agreements have been reviewed by all member species, Grom announced, his ethereal form flickering with what might have been satisfaction. The Treaty of Quantum Accord represents a fundamental shift in how we approach interspecies relations. Ambassador Thorne leaned forward, his scaled features showing grudging respect rather than the hostility that had characterized their first meeting. The humans have proven that overwhelming force is not the ultimate arbiter of galactic politics. It's a lesson our species should have learned millennia ago. Queen Hive Mother Zix's compound eyes reflected the chamber's soft lighting as she spoke through the neural translator. The Insectoid Collective has studied human problem-solving methods extensively since the incident. Their approach to seemingly impossible situations is unlike anything we've encountered. Commander Zol's crystalline form pulsed with thoughtful energy patterns. The quantum resonance technology represents more than just a military development. It's a philosophical statement about the nature of reality and our place within it. The treaty that lay before them was revolutionary in scope. The first provision established that territorial disputes would be resolved through diplomatic arbitration, rather than military threat. A new interspecies court would handle conflicts with representatives from all member species, ensuring that no single group could dominate the process. The second provision interests me most, General Crack rumbled, his massive stone form casting familiar shadows across the table. The voluntary sharing of technological advancement. No species will be required to reveal their secrets, but they cannot be punished for innovation, Reed nodded approvingly. This provision recognizes that progress benefits everyone. The fear of technological advancement has held back galactic civilization for too long? The third provision formally recognized the concept of defensive superiority, the idea that technologies designed to prevent conflict were preferable to those designed to win it. The quantum demonstration had proven that intelligence could neutralize brute force, making traditional military buildups obsolete. Most importantly, Reed continued, the treaty acknowledges that no single species or alliance can claim dominance over galactic civilization. The age of overwhelming force as the ultimate arbiter has ended. High Arbiter Grome's ancient form brightened with approval. The humans have reminded us of something we had forgotten, that wisdom is more powerful than weapons, and creativity is the ultimate defense. The formal signing ceremony proceeded with representatives from all species, adding their marks to the quantum encrypted document. But the real changes were already happening throughout the galaxy. Species that had relied on military might for centuries were suddenly investing in research and innovation. The human demonstration had triggered a renaissance of scientific advancement. Ambassador Reed, Queen Hive Mother Zix asked during a break in the proceedings, I must satisfy my curiosity about something. How many ships like the Persistence does humanity actually possess? Reed smiled with the same enigmatic expression that had characterized human diplomacy since the crisis began. That information remains classified. But I will say this, the Persistence was our first successful implementation of quantum warfare technology. Whether it's our only implementation is something we prefer to keep to ourselves. The uncertainty itself had become a strategic advantage. The Alliance species couldn't plan military actions against an enemy whose capabilities remained unknown. Fear of encountering more quantum-capable vessels had effectively ended the age of aggressive expansion through the galaxy. A very human answer, Grom observed with what sounded like amusement. You've learned that questions can be more powerful than answers. As the treaty negotiations concluded, delegations from various species approached the human representatives, with requests that would have been unthinkable months earlier. The Scalari wanted to establish joint research projects focused on defensive technologies. The Prism Collective sought cultural exchange programs to better understand human innovation methods. Even the traditionally isolationist Void Watchers expressed interest in formal diplomatic relations. The balance of galactic power has fundamentally shifted, Commander Zulm noted as he prepared to depart for his home system. Not through conquest or military victory, but through demonstration of superior thinking. Reed watched the various delegations dispersing to carry news of the treaty to their homeworlds. Change was inevitable. The question was whether it would come through war or through wisdom. I'm glad we chose wisdom. On Earth, Captain Torres received a hero's welcome, though the details of her mission remained classified above the highest government levels. The Persistence had been quietly returned to its secret base, where engineers were already working on next-generation quantum systems, based on lessons learned during the crisis, but perhaps the most significant change was philosophical. Throughout the galaxy, species that had focused on building larger fleets and more powerful weapons began redirecting their efforts toward innovation and creativity. The human demonstration had proven that intelligence could overcome any numerical disadvantage. The age of the superfleet is over, Torres told the gathering of human military leaders during her debriefing. The age of the supermind has begun. Young officers throughout human space began studying the principles that had made the quantum demonstration possible. The idea that limitations were suggestions rather than laws became a cornerstone of human military doctrine. If reality itself could be bent to serve defensive purposes, what other impossible problems might have elegant solutions? The Alliance fleet that had once threatened human extinction was gradually disbanded, its ships returning to patrol duties and peaceful exploration. The massive show of force that was supposed to end human expansion had instead triggered a transformation that made such displays meaningless. In the end, Reed reflected during a private conversation with High Arbiter Grom, the question only, one human ship? Why was that all they needed? Had a simple answer. Because humans have never learned to accept that something is impossible. Grome's ethereal form flickered with what might have been approval. Your species has taught us that the greatest victory is the one that requires no battle. That wisdom will reshape galactic civilization for millennia to come. The quantum resonance. Technology remained humanity's most closely guarded secret, but its effects rippled throughout known space. Species that had measured strength in ship counts and weapon yields began measuring it in innovation and adaptability. The galaxy became a more peaceful place not because conflicts ended, but because the tools of conflict had been rendered obsolete. Years later, when historians studied the brief crisis that changed everything, they would note that the transformation began not with the deployment of overwhelming force, but with a single question asked by a confident human diplomat. Sometimes the most profound changes came not from superior numbers or advanced technology, but from the simple refusal to accept defeat. The Persistence continued its silent patrol of human space, a reminder that intelligence properly applied could overcome any challenge. Its quantum capabilities remained ready to defend humanity if needed, but the galaxy had learned an important lesson about the futility of challenging an enemy that refused to play by conventional rules. In the depths of space, where the great confrontation had taken place, monitoring stations recorded only empty void and drifting particles. But the effects of what had happened there would echo through galactic history forever, proving that sometimes one ship really was all they needed.